How long have you had this storage unit for?
We've stored stuff here for at least 20 years. We first came here when we lived down the village. We have 3 units, and I'm not sure when this one...
Where'd you grow up?
I was born in Brooklyn, and then I grew up in Long Island, 5 towns. And my parents did not like art and culture at all. Nobody in my family did. They looked down at me, and I was smart in school, and I wasn't supposed to be smart in school either. When I was a little kid, I just needed to do drawing, and I made this up, Genie and the Rainmaker, and it was some story I just told myself, and then I was a little kid. I mean, I think I might have been like 9 or 10, no, maybe 11 or 12. But it's a whole story, and I showed it to my grandchildren, and they loved it. I didn't think anyone would want to see this. But it is about a little girl who had a dream. It was raining on her birthday, and she thought it would ruin it and people wouldn't come. So she had a conversation with the Rainmaker, and she started asking him to please make it stop raining. It didn't have an ending. So you had to figure out your own ending, whether the Rainmaker would cooperate or be nasty and what you would do. And these are all in closets, you know, and I never look at them. This one is I did a whole series of Venice when we were there a long, long time ago. It just became so abstract. I love it.
This is one of the first series she did of these do not go on the lake, red ladders. I assume the red is supposed to be like a red light, but it really doesn't work too well.
No, the thing here is the abstraction that happens when the snow covers the landscape. It's just a new world for me. Every season is a new world, and every time of day.
What's that one?
Oh, that's an early one. Can you lift that up?
That looks great.
Oh, that's flower shop? Flower? No, it's flowers, certainly. Well, that was the Subway series. You know, she's had the experience of someone wanting to buy a painting, which isn't an everyday experience, and saying, I just painted that one, I can't part with it yet.
When we moved to Manhattan, I had to kind of get rid of about 2/3 of our belongings, and I had to make a decision: do I save these, or do I trash them and throw them away like I did a lot of my work? You know, I have no place to store these things except here, and nobody knows them about them if it wasn't for this event. This pysography is kind of 7 shades of black instead of like a regular inkjet, and then it has a gloss overcoat, so it's actually kind of a long process. Done with an inkjet printer, but with 7 shades of black instead of 3 in a color inkset. I do street photography, and some of it's like urban landscape, and a lot of it is to kind of catch the New York that I'm getting displaced from. This is the Domino Sugar Refinery, which is being dismantled. So this is actually a pretty historical photograph. This is Rosali bookstore that was like a landmark on 57th Street is gone, and I'm glad I took these shots. Here's a shot that I'm really proud of. This is a wet print that was printed by a custom lab for me. I shot it with a Rolleiflex, and what happens is the Empire State Building today, if you tried to get this shot, is actually blocked by a high-rise in Long Island City. I was actually kind of like trespassing to get this shot. So actually, I could have been arrested. If I hang that in my living room, it's going to be like adding a window to my apartment, and I'll be like in Columbus Circle instead of like in East Harlem. This is me way back when. This was 1984. I had this thing framed, and with some letters I put on it, I am a disoriented Oriental. You know, it does resemble kind of like a website, the layering of images, even though this predates the internet and all that technology that followed. This is actually, I had in my wallet some 13-cent stamps from like back in the day. They actually kind of made this beautiful image, and I kind of enlarged that and abstracted that by blowing it up. And the last time these things were exhibited was like in the 80s. If you see over here, there's some type of mold growing on my glass here. So that's disheartening. These paintings are old, and they need to go to conservator. These paintings might be lost forever if they deteriorate further. Not a lot of my work from this era survived, because a lot of it I just couldn't manage, so I end up destroying a lot of my work. Is the tape still running? Because this needs to be recorded. This is like my life right here. This like little walk-in storage facility is like what I'm proud of. And I have kind of a mausoleum happening to kind of like say, oh gee, this artist that lived, that remained obscure, and died, he left something behind, something that was important, that he protected. And he dedicated his life to keeping my whole fucking life. This is little room.
This unit I've had for about a year and a half, but I had it upstairs, and then I moved it down here because I was trying to consolidate to smaller spaces because I was going to be gone for about a year and a half. And so I was trying to save a little bit of money, and so I've been in this building since 2006. Some of the pieces, actually probably way in the back, are things that I did a long time ago, and I would say I would pull them out and rework them. But most of the stuff that's in there, you know, come in and out of different places. Gone to this show, went to that show, come back here. They're all the same starting. I usually put the canvas on the ground and trace shadows of trees. So that's usually how I start all my canvases. So I started that in 2003, or actually before that I started looking at it. I was born with a congenital heart disease. So I started noticing from the data how the interior of the body and how shadows of trees look similar. This kind of is combining things from landscape, combining things from that, and combining things from things I was just absorbing fashion-wise around me in Harlem.
And what I love it really talks about rhythm, colors, nature.
Yeah, so I kind of like combining them all together.
And is this writing?
Yeah, there's writing on the wall, kind of, or writing on the piece. Let's see, what does it say? Oh, no, I was just being silly. They said to me, "I give you a penny for your thoughts." I said, "What are you guys, comedians or something like that?" So that was kind of, a lot of times I just kind of write responding to whatever's happening. This one is called Eclectic Electric. So it could be illuminated under black light too. So this is kind of when I made the shift from the fabric. You know, when I was, instead of just being a fabric, I was kind of doing different things with the paint, kind of creating my own patterns with the paint instead of using the fabric. And then, you know, making it so it would have two different life forms, like day and night, because just like people, the ambivalent personalities. So I was kind of like thinking of that.
It's nice, heavy from
I
down
haven't
here.
seen this painting in a long time. Oh no, this is it's the buffalo painting because it.
Is this
looks
black
like a
light as
buffalo
well?
inside. Yeah, it's black light too. So, yeah, a lot of times I like to. When I was working on these paintings, I was working on 2 or 3 at a time because I had to wait for things to dry. This was 2000 and.
I love this
Remember?
drip technique. And
It's kind of
rich.
try to be very methodical about my process when I'm dripping. It's very consistent and wanting it to layer and layer and layer on top of each other. When you see it illuminate under black light, that's where it really pops out. And that is kind of that space that I give in between.
And do you usually work like this scale because of the shadows of the trees, or what inclines you to do work that is so large?
It's just because I like being interactive with I like having an interaction with my work. I like being able to move around, dance around, you know, like feel like it becomes a space, a time, a moment, or something I'm recreating.
When I moved to New York, space was limited, so I had to start putting my artwork in storage because there wasn't enough room in my studio.
And when did you move to New York?
I moved to New York in 1994. I was diagnosed with diabetes at 6. By 12, I was pretty depressed, and I definitely needed therapy. But my therapist saw that I had a talent and got me into the Corcoran School of Fine Art, put in a word, and they saw my work, and they were like, awesome. So I was studying at 12 at one of the top 10 colleges in the country. It's like one of my most vivid memories from childhood, and I was like 3 or 4, and I just remember not liking the coloring books, and my mother gave me a pad of paper and a crayon, and I just started drawing with lines, just making lines and then filling them in. And 2007, I think. It's weird. I know the pieces by gallery show because you're always creating new for the gallery shows, and so I try to remember, where did I first see my piece up on a wall? I spent a lot of time growing up in Maryland. Every weekend during the summer we'd go to the beach, and there's just something about the beach, and still today, just I get there and I just like everything's at peace. So I wanted to share that with everybody else. And I'm embarrassing. I love this piece, actually. I did it for my bathroom. It's from when I was, in high school, and I wanted to put a piece up in my bathroom, and
Oh, it's toilet paper, right?
yeah, it's toilet paper.
Oh, wow. Now, in terms of scale, I see that you have stick to kind of like the similar scale. Why is that? Why do you work with these dimensions?
Well, it has a lot to do with what size my bed is, actually. I just throw a painting on my bed and just, cover and then a painting on the bed and just start painting. And this piece, by far, is one of my greatest creations. Now looking at it, I'm happy it didn't sell. Yeah, I only showed it in the beginning when I didn't have as many collectors.
But what year is this one from?
It's definitely late 90s.
Horizontal.
This is when my mother-in-law flipped upside down.
Oh.
Well, it was on loan. She loved it, and I said, well, I'll let you hang it. I mean, this is horrible, but I actually, as I was looking at it, didn't remember which way was the right way at this point. Back then I knew, but,
Yeah.
I haven't seen it for a while. There's lots of these pieces that I've seen hundreds of times, but then there's just some that get shown maybe once, and then I'm like, okay, well, it had its day, and some that actually don't see the light of day.
This storage space I've had since May of last year.
And how long have you had your studio nearby?
My studio I've had pretty much since I started painting. It's a live workspace.
And you've been living in New York since?
I've been born and raised, so I'm a
okay.
Manhattan kid, born
Okay.
in Chelsea. So I haven't really gone
So you haven't
that
moved
far.
that far.
Well, this is my storage space, and it's basically, I know what everything is. It's pretty unorganized, but that's how I operate. Organized chaos. The ones in the back right there are like my early pieces, maybe like 2005, 6, 7, 8, that I'm never going to show anyone, but I want to save. These pieces are pieces that are currently going to shows or just back from shows. This is relatively recent. I use a lot of construction materials in my work, kind of like the materials that build the world in a way. Some of my work is completely recycled. It's like I spend all this time making a beautiful canvas, and then I rip it, I tack it, I break it, because then it has character, Like that's wrapped back from a show. I think that looks kind of amazing. Plastic, tape, it just seems so pretty and yet unintentional. I don't know, maybe I'm crazy, but I get interested in that history of a object that really has only had a utilitarian use beforehand, and I wanted to kind of capture that energy and that mystery in my own work. This is a piece that was, ironically, it did start as a piece on canvas, and it did start originally as a rectangle. So this has had like many lives. Now this piece is, deliberately kind of like my homage to one of my favorite artists, Stephen Perino, and a color scheme. And,
I love that
and there's
little
like
surprise.
Yeah. Everything has served a purpose at some point, right? So like in the history of this piece, which is now maybe like 4 or 5 pieces to get to this particular piece, staples have, adhered the canvas to the stretcher. The nails have adhered the piece to the wall at some point. So even though they might not be functioning, holding the piece up on the wall right now, there is a history. It became a little more black, a little bit tighter, and a little bit more minimal, I guess is a good word. The black I call post-apocalyptic black. Mm-hmm. Eventually it's going to be my own paint. Now it's like
Yves Klein sort
yeah,
of.
exactly. I want to really do that, and I'm looking to work with a scientist, so if you know anyone, let me know. So this was an example of kind of like, on one level you can say you're just covering up everything with black, but on another level you can say that you're just playing with surface and texture a lot more.
And sometimes you do get like glossy, and sometimes you.
Yeah, I play now. What it is like zeros and ones in computer programming, like gloss matte, gloss matte, gloss matte, gloss matte, and infinite times. Another reason I think the storage space is so good is that I get to put it here, and I don't see it on a daily basis, and therefore it survives.
I have boxes with drawings, and I've been drawing since I was in my early 20s. So I've got a lot of artwork that I've accumulated over the years. I started out down there at a very small one, and then I graduated to that one over here, and then I expanded into that one over there as well, and then I just took this one as well. So this one has all my artwork, and it's a place where I can do some work as well. These are some of the first ones I ever did, and I didn't even know that I liked to draw then. Like when I was in school, I took courses in like junior high school and high school. I always got C's in art because I didn't know that it was something I could do. Well, this is from 1973 to 75. So this is 40 some odd years ago.
Wow.
So this is when I first started drawing. I think I had I don't know if it was physically that I could do this kind of detail when I was younger, or whether it was mental or physical or both or something, but I don't think I could do the same kind of detail now. I work on maybe 15 drawings at the same time. All these books are all drawings that I'm working on at the same time. I have them on my drawing table. And I've always just kind of let my hand go, so it's always me, so, you know, kind of is what it is. I kind of talk about whatever is on my mind. This is another Trump picture. You can see Trump has been on my mind lately, and you can see what my politics are.
But I love these like little surprises that you use, for example, portfolio as a way to store your artwork.
Yeah.
And that would be also a very kind of like honest and transparent approach. I mean, it would even be great if we could, in the portfolio format, have you kind of like curate your own, let's say, sort of like retrospective in a way. Like getting like some of the drawings that you like the most or that have influenced you the most, like throughout the years.
Right.
And then just have that, because I don't know, there's something in like the richness of like the drawings and seeing one after the other and seeing it also as a spread.
Yeah, yeah.
That it just communicates it. Like it really allows people to like sort of emerge in like my Jacob's world in a way, you know? Like
yeah, well, in a way, I've never loved having drawings up on the wall, and I react to, like I kind of react to them in a closer way, so that I can see where that makes sense.
The majority of my career has been in film. I started out as a cinematographer and then went into directing. But before that, in my 20s, I spent 10 years as what's called a reportage photographer. And I was based in Europe and lived in Paris for that period of time. But what happened about 7 years ago, I was going through some of the stuff in my office and I found my negative book from the 1960s. And I broke open this negative book, and it was like looking at a new photographer. I had totally forgotten about all the material that was in the negative book. I don't have the book, but everything here reflects the photos from the 1960s. There was a poet who was writing about the end of Coney Island, how it was all going to disappear. And he asked me if I would go down and shoot pictures of the last of Coney Island. This was actually a juice stand. And if you can see, there were the oranges and the carrots. And then there was this carrot juice sign underneath it. And then I sort of abstracted it. I started to pull it out this way, pull it down that way, push it up this way, and stretch it out.
And you got both storage units around the same time?
So the thing just kept going like that. And of course I needed photos for every show. And then the lockers became important because what do I do with all this stuff after the shows? So this is one locker. And then there is another locker on the first floor here where there is additional photos. Okay, so yeah, this is all the Italian stuff. The reason I got the photos like this is because I was not an official photographer for that movie. So I'd walk around the set and nobody knew who I was, and they said, okay, I don't know who he is. And so I just had all the free rein to shoot all these photographs. This is Claudia Cardinale, who's very famous both as an Italian actress and as an international actress. So this was probably one of the best moments in my life. So I was 20 years old, starting out as a reportage photographer, and we were supposed to meet Claudia with the publicity agent and a few other people from the film for lunch. I showed up for lunch. Claudia showed up. Nobody else did. Because we were alone and she was, I don't know, she was sort of looking off. Then I said, okay, how bad could it be? So, you know, I had no idea that I would ever revisit the still work, the years I did stills. And here I am revisiting in it after, 40 years.
I mean, I live at the Chelsea Hotel. The building was sold, and the new owners start targeting the tenants, and we start having floodings and all kinds of, like, I think by 2012 or something like that, I got storage, and I start moving my archives into here so that at least they would be safe. Yes, I did. I mean, this is organized, okay? This one was bought in 1991. I've had it since. And it's been on my wall, and I absolutely love it. And I decided that I would photograph it and then live with a copy. So this way, if there's a flooding, I don't get to lose the actual painting.
And you bought it here in New York?
Yeah,
or?
yeah.
Nice.
It was a show on Lafayette Street. Oh, there it is. Okay, this is how it looks in my apartment. This is the former setup with the actual painting. And now is a copy. So this is a photo a friend of mine did, Shahrazad Kamel. She gave me this photo, which used to be on my wall. So this is how it looked on my wall. So I took the photo back to storage, photographed it the way it looks, and this is I live with this.
Now, when you say I live with this,
I mean that's the way my apartment looks like.
So, do you have this photo, or do you have this photo next to the lamp, or do you
I have this
the
actual photo.
Okay. No lamp, basically.
Oh, the lamp is there. Yeah. Okay. Well, because the lamp we can get rid of.
Yeah.
So I have this beautiful fireplace. They closed it off, and I just got so mad because I used it a lot. So I had a photo of the fire burning. So I'm like, okay, I'll just put the photo, and I pretend that the fireplace is still working. Following off the idea of removing everything from the apartment. This is my closet. So this is a photo of what the closet looked like. I have to leave one piece because otherwise it just looks too weird. Mm-hmm. So this gives, this leaves the sense of perspective. Mm-hmm. Right.
That's great.
Because I split, this is living room. This is a book I've done, a handmade book.
And now, do you usually show these like in series, or do you show them individually, or how do you?
I mean, these two were now in London at the these two were now at these two. They were at the Royal Academy Summer Show.
Wow, congratulations. I'm just saying, like, I would love, for example, to show like series of like cabinets, you know, so like to put maybe like 4 of these. I think it would look great, like of the different ones.
Yeah.
Is that same red wall that you use for?
So you know, it's you get to see.
Yeah. You get to see really like your whole house, basically. Like I can imagine it. Right?
And I mean, I photographed in my apartment basically so much, but it's like different ideas, but it's the same place. It's the same red wall as that red wall.
Oh, that's great. Actually, that's a great idea. I didn't think of like books as a medium, and the way you use it, it's almost like it creates an exhibition space.
Absolutely.
You know, it really like.
It is. And if you live in a place that you've been flooded and jackhammered and so on. You remove the stuff that you like, and why do I have to live with empty walls? So I just decided this is the way it looks. And I actually love the way it looks now.
Yeah. How long have you had the storage unit for?
1 year and 2 weeks. It was August 8th of last year that I got the unit. And a lot of it has been here and never looked at again.
And how many years of art do you have stored?
Maybe 8 or 9 years, I think. All right, so here it is. This is my storage unit. I've always been fascinated by altars. I'm an atheist, but I'm jealous of religions now. I did a series of street art that was altars to different concepts or ideas. So there was love, there was hope, there was grace, there was youth, money, and fame. So then they were put up in different locations, and most of these disappeared within a week or a couple of weeks. But hope stayed for 2 years. It stayed up right until Hurricane Sandy. And then this was inspired by a trip to a mountain lake in Colorado where we went skinny dipping. Obviously not with a bunch of women offering birch branches to a beaver lodge. Deal with working with pom-poms. They take up a lot of space. You know? I've showed people photos of this, and I always get a response. But I've never actually, no one's actually ever seen this painting. So, and I'm always surprised. I like this painting, but I'm always surprised that when I'm going through my phone, people are always oh, that one. I'm like, really, that one? So I don't know. Maybe now I've built it up so much that you're gonna kind of started with the idea of the girl on the sofa, and then kind of built out from there and adding the details. So this is Rhonda. I actually saw this woman on the subway, and then I took mental notes of everything. I wrote those notes down in my phone of all the different characteristics that stood out to me and what I wanted to convey in it. And then I came back and I painted her. She did have a baby with her. She was covered in tats. She had the big earrings and she had the sunglasses on her head, and she had small close-set eyes and big lips, and her hair was in a bun.
And I love how that baby, because of the color scheme, almost looks like the girl in the living room's baby.
Oh, right. Yeah, it could be. Right. Right. Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
I can't help it. With that baby, if my baby would be that color, I would be worried.
Right. So these weirdly have not gotten the response that I thought they would get. I don't know, maybe my reference is too old and obscure. I don't know. So these were just fun. In the 70s, there was these figures, and they said things "I love you so much" and things like that, and "Greatest Dad" and things like that. So then I was I wanted to pair those with rap lyrics, gangster rap lyrics. So this one says, "I ain't mad at you, got nothing but love for you." So Tupac. Oh, these are again, you hang on to stuff just because there was a moment maybe where you saw something that you wanted to do. So this one is not finished at all, but maybe it is finished. I don't know.
So what I have here are my small works is what I'm working on. I worked here full-time for 4 years. I'm not doing that anymore. But I love this unit. It came with these shelves, so I like to be organized in my storage, so it makes it easy to be organized. I'm working on these assemblages, which all of the stuff that's being assembled has been at various times stored in the unit. I've always made art, so a lot of the pieces I've made over the years are being part of these other pieces.
So can you talk a little bit about each element and why it made it to that artwork in particular?
More how this came to be. It's always something that means something to me. So in this particular piece, well, there's a computer chip and there's a more computer in there because I think that's the only way things are going to work anymore, so we have to keep those. This is an old reflector from my 1974 bicycle, which I still have. It's my road bike. This is, I'm not sure, I think it's a Cuisinart how-to disc. This is some film from when I was in elementary school. Wow. I suspect it's a piece with my grandmother on it. Oh, I always put some maps when I can. because I think we need to know where we've been and then where we're going. This is representing of a scroll. A lot of my works now have scrolls because I think it's all stories that need to be told. Oh, these are some plastic things from Costco that I just feel, what else can we do with them?
I remember that one.
And this is my second to my newest piece. So again, I had some film to use.
What is the piece with the circle?
Oh, that's my house in Pennsylvania. We had track lighting. And this was an old underwater face mask that I loved as a kid. But I had so many good visual memories from it, I just thought someday I would use it. This was given to me when I was in like 4th grade. For some store, everyone got one, and I had it aside, and I didn't know what to do with it, and it has to be either properly disposed of, I guess, buried or passed on. And I said, oh, I can put it in art. And there's probably, people, as a big topic, what is Jewish art? Is it art that's made by someone who's Jewish, or is it on Jewish subject? I don't know, but I like to think my art, some of it is in some way influenced or inspired by my culture.
Voila.
So, yeah, so it's really great to show your art.
So how long have you had your storage unit for?
For about 5, maybe 6 years.
The artwork that you have, like what's the time span that you've done this artwork?
I'd say from about 2008. It kind of stops around 2011 because that's when I moved to New York, and not only has my art been in storage, but my artistic life has been in storage. These are remnants, what is left over from a show I did in about 2010. It travels from Cambodia. This is Mexico.
And how long ago did you start working with photography?
My mother was a photographer when I was young. She's now a jewelry designer. I've always had photography in my life. I really started picking it up first when I think I was just out of college, and then later when the digital age really became pertinent. I started film and catching up with all of the technology that I had not learned. I have no idea what's in here. This is mystery. Woohoo! This is Bangkok, and I love street shots. And this is a stray dog, and there's McDonald's in the background in prayer position. So I find I love life's absurdities. This is one of the things that I love just very strange juxtapositions and the quirky things that are part of life. And it's also one of my favorites. I call it Why God Hates Trailer Parks. And it was in Hatch, New Mexico. And I didn't Photoshop this. So this is another one of those things where those just absurd things in life just appear. That's Big Tex. That's the Big Tex that burned down. It was a couple of years ago. It was the worst day of my life. I mean, seriously, like one of those terrible weeks where Big Tex, the icon of my youth at the State Fair of Texas, actually burned up. And that day, Beirut was bombed. And that week, I stepped on a dead rat, and it stuck to the bottom of my boot. This is called Giving Head in LA. I was on the street, and this garage had these heads. This actually was there. I did not move this. Jesus was actually right in front of the truck. Here's Jesus blessing the truck. All of these are kind of wrapped up and ready to frame.
So, this is where I keep some stuff.
Wow.
You haven't seen one that looked like this yet.
I actually photographed, I think, in 2007. Part of a story that I was shooting for myself, and it had to do with ghost stories in a way.
You don't say.
And this was the only one like that, though. It was the last image in the series that I did. So I got a lot of really positive response from it. This was a lot of fun. I actually had this poor young lady suspended by tension straps from a ceiling. And it was like January, and it was super cold.
That one's different.
This is different. This is Bill Laswell. He's an awesome bass player. This is in Jackson Heights. So we did this sort of story, and it was just different scenes throughout the house. This was in the courtyard there, and it had this whole like broken doll theme. You can't see this small. You know, even this is too small for it, I feel like. I like this one a lot. I found a lot of just bizarre moments in putting it together. This one went through quite a few changes. I lived with it for a while. I think there were more elements to it. There was more going on. And then I sort of started taking away from it. I've sold a couple of these. Miss Giovanna had a very, very good sense of humor with me. It was an August day, and it was impossibly humid, similar to today. Like the 16 by 20s, I feel like they're a little more manageable for someone to be able to put up. I mean, obviously it takes up more wall space once it's actually framed and all that. But. So this was a very, very, very cold day in January, and this girl was also a real trooper. So we went from the extremely warm to the extremely cold. So this was from one of the images I showed you. It's called The Feast, and it has a fox and a pig and an elephant, and I knew I had a fourth mask, so I figured when I photographed myself, oh, I could hide myself.
So these guys, their names are Mole. Each one is called Mole. They were in a full-length puppet opera that we did called Shuldiner, and they were so popular that we started taking them around to schools. So we decided to build a fleet of them because our original set was getting dirty from all the touring. So now we have a little army of moles. This is a puppet that we keep in a bag that was also originally a puppet. This blew up into a sunflower. And now it's used to hold another puppet since that show is done with. So the base is paper mache. This is hollowed out thermoplastic. It's just a moldable plastic. You heat it up and then it becomes malleable like Play-Doh. So you can shape it into teeth, make it a little hollow, and then there's LED tape running. This is one of my first puppets I ever made. So she's a little rough, but it's nice to kind of hold on to those things to realize how far you've gone. This is Anna from Havana. She's a swordfish. She looks sad because she recently had her heart broken. No, her bike stolen. She recently had her bike stolen, that's what it is. And I think her heart broken too. When I design these, I purposely design them with storage in mind. So their head is actually detached from their bodies. So we have Owl, and this is Rooster. And
I remember that guy.
Yeah, and Rooster's legs also come off. So you can see it's just snaps that you would use on clothing. Wow. And they all have the same corresponding snaps here. So if I really needed to get these guys into a smaller component, Rooster's legs also come off and Owl's wings can come off. If someone asked me if my storage unit caught on fire, what's the one thing you would save, and it would be this. But I decided I wanted to make a giant pop-up book, so every time the set changes and the page turns. So it starts off with like simple. And then the puppets themselves are paper and then they're watercolors, so they can stand out in the collage. This is a little.
Oh my god.
Pop up on it. To close the boxes off in case it says chickens on it.
So how long have you had this storage space for?
Well, I've been this particular storage space 10 years, maybe. I don't know how long I've been using this place, 30 years possibly. At one point, at the end of the corridor here, they had these gigantic spaces. I had one of those for a while when I had to close down an office.
Yeah. So all of these boxes in the back are from our office stuff, or they're mixed?
Office stuff, old family photos that still haven't been sorted out after generations. Some, old people in the family will die, and then we'll inherit all their old photos, which we swear we're going to sort out one day, but we never do.
How many years of art do you have stored, would you say?
Well, I've been basically doing art full-time for about a dozen years now, a little less, I guess. If a painting is within reach, it's not safe. I'm liable to say, no, yeah, I really should fix that color. But this one was done mostly on location by the Bridle Path in Central Park. Extremely expensive condos. But back then it was a cancer hospital, and they built these round rooms because they thought germs collected in the corners. So if you have a design that has no corners, it'll be cleaner and safer and healthier. So when I was there, I said, could I come back? I wonder if I could come back there sometime and maybe get permission to use their windows and get some views. And I went to the reception desk. But now I was no longer, a special historian. I'm just some guy off the street. So she says, well, I'll have to check. So she goes back and checks to see whether it'd be okay for me to take some snapshots out the windows. And while she's gone, I went over and I quickly snapped what I could from the reception room, just in case. And she came back and she said, no, I'm sorry, no, that won't be allowed. I said, oh, okay. I like to think that everything that I have here is worth keeping. If I'm dubious about it, then it's probably at home waiting to be improved. Oh, from here. Last year, I went out to California, and it was a special family occasion. My favorite aunt was turning 90, we had a party, and once I was out in California, I found, well, maybe I'll stay for a little longer. I ended up driving around for a month and painting California. So I have a
California series.
A California series.
That's,
is that.
I know.
I also fell into the trap of painting this.
Wow.
I'd been to Yosemite when I was 10, and thought about it, ever since. And this scene, more or less, is also the basis of one of the dioramas at the Museum of Natural History. So it's very familiar. Walk into Yosemite, it's like going home. It's like a carpeted living room. It's this level, green, inviting lawn. And I came on this scene just as, I think I may have done it justice. I don't know.
I went to Barros School of Art, which is now become a St. Martin's College of Art in London. Yeah. So after graduating, I spent 2 years in London. I went back to Malaysia to teach in the Malaysian Institute of Art. Then I participated in a good show, and I had my first solo show in 1986 in Kuala Lumpur. So, and then after that, I decided to come back to New York.
That's really great. But you were already using also some like relief and texture.
Yes, I did relief, yeah. Influenced by my Chinese background, try to fuse it in a Western discipline. Two different town medium fusing in them. This is about this is porcelain content to high fire. I doing this to two faces. One side with the rose, the other side with the bomb. You see, the human. You see.
Yeah.
One side you smile to people, the other side is a bomb, and the peaceful dove is out of the mind, it's far away. So, and then I incorporate with some modern. This is the era of at yahoo.com, whatever. Yeah, this is the piece, and I have a. Instead, I use some symbol question mark. This is more expressive, like just bring out the emotion.
Right.
Because emotion, just very simple emotion.
And it's amazing what just including the belly button can communicate.
Yes, and then a little bit of very. I mean, it's like it's not exactly like that, but I just put the important things there to show. This is the one I have thinking about environment and endangered species. So I play with some symbol, Chinese calligraphy symbol. This word meaning is cunning.
It's what?
Cunning. C-U-N-N-I-N-G. A business cunning people.
Yeah.
And it sounds like in Chinese you call it jian sang, cunning businessman. So I make the head
like
go
a
up.
cone.
Cone. That's a sound, to do with sound. And that's because they want to make money. That's why they go and poaching the elephant tusks, reindeer horns, going here, disappearing from here, going in the human body. Unless it's a shark, the fins is coming here. That's what I. This is a little piece of mountain I do. Different from that. This is a testing tile about the mountain. One side is like that. Oh, I thought it's cute, so
I'm a relatively new artist. I started painting about 6 years ago after a long career in public relations. But as a kid, kids press their noses against candy stores. I would press my nose against an art store.
Where are you originally from?
New York City.
Oh, from New York.
I was born and bred, grew up on 77th Street and live on 86th Street. Haven't gone very far, but I've done a lot of traveling. My husband and I also have a podcast on travel on the internet, letstravelradio.com. I have not had formal training in painting. I've learned on the job, which is how I've learned everything in my life, more or less. So with paintings like the ones you see here, which are a series, they're very textured. They're very layered because what I do basically is they're like 7-layer cakes. I put a layer on of paint, acrylic. I work in acrylic because I have no patience for oils. I work on acrylic, I put something down as a grounding, then I might put something else down, and then I put very thick paint, roll on with rollers, very thick paint.
Oh, so that's all paint, that's not medium.
Well, it's medium. It has some matte medium maybe in it, or heavy gel gloss. Trust me, I have every medium God created. It gives me enormous pleasure to do this. I don't think anything in my life has given me this much pleasure because it's totally mine. Yeah. And when I'm in the studio, I have a shared studio in Chinatown. When I'm in the studio and I'm doing this, it just is a very freeing, centering experience. I always see new things. And my intent for viewers is to see their own things in it.